All right, good morning, everybody. Today is April 12th, 2023. Welcome to the DAC. Can I have a roll call, please?
Nick Mealish.
Present.
Brian Chagas.
Present.
Gregory Gabriel. Please let the record reflect that Greg is not here. Stephen Graham.
Present.
Brad McPherson.
Present.
Kim Doe.
Present.
Please also let the record reflect that Michael Chagas and Roger Jansen are not present.
Thank you. Now, if you'll all join me, we'll stand and take the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Next is approval of minutes. Did anybody have any comments on the meeting minutes?
Yes,
from last?
Mr. Chairman, I actually saw two things that should be corrected.
Okay.
So the first one is the item 1 on the call to order roll call. It says Ms. Gregory Gabriel is present, but then on number 2 and 5 below, it shows that he was absent. So if you could please just double check to make sure it's all consistent. So that's the first one, and then all the other like number 5 and number the TDR, for example, all the other motion is at 6-0, but it probably should be 5-0. So if you could just double check all of them, make sure they're consistent. And then the other comment is on the number 7 and unfinished business. The board asked the transportation, it should be concurrency instead of currency. It should be concurrency, traffic concurrency. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments and review. Next is report from the city urban designer.
Good morning, everyone. Claudia Babin, City Urban Designer.
Good morning.
Thank you. We will be bringing a topic later on the agenda in other issues, but other than that, we don't have anything to report.
Great. Thank you. Next is remarks by the chairperson. I'm riding the chair today. I have no remarks. Next is declaration of ex parte communications. Has there been any ex parte communications from any board members? Okay, next we're going to open up the public hearing. If you're going to be speaking today on a case, you need to be sworn in, and the swearing in will occur for those.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding will be truthful?
I do. Thank you. Now we're going to go on to continued cases. Formal site plan review case number 22-19, a request by Eli Zachariades, Esquire of Dunne, Miskell, and Backman LLP on behalf of 520 West Palm Beach Holdings LLC for the DAC approval of a special review pursuant to section 94-54B2 for an 8-story, 296,863 square foot residential building within 2 towers housing 321 multifamily units, 78 micro units, 29 one-bedroom units, 107 one-bedroom units with a den, 99 two-bedroom units, 7 three-bedroom units, and 1 live-work unit. The location of the subject property, consisting of 2.49 acres, is located at 410 North Rosemary Avenue and 510 through 560 North Rosemary Avenue within Commission District Number 3, Commissioner Christy Fox.
Mr. Chair, I have a conflict on this agenda item and also on the second and third agenda items, so I need to recuse myself.
Thank you. So noted.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Ellie Zacharias, Danemis Gobachman, 14 Southeast 4th Street. Really excited to bring this project to you today. We've been working very closely with staff for some time, and we thank them for all their assistance. I'll be very brief. The parcel has Railroad Avenue to the east, 3rd Street to the south, and Rosemary to the west. It sits between 3rd and 4th. It's a total of 7 parcels. Together, it's just shy of 2.5 acres. And currently, as you saw, it was vacant. So as you noted, Chair, we're proposing a multifamily development. It will be 8 stories, totaling 321 units. I won't read all the breakdown of those units as you just did, so I thank you. Just really briefly, we meet all of code requirements. We meet or exceed parking. We are just under the maximum FAR. We do meet all the setbacks as well. Again, I won't sit and read these. I just wanted to note that we're meeting all these criteria. And open space, the semi-public open space was really satisfied along Rosemary through walk-up gardens. And of course, we have the private open space on the 5th floor rooftop. But what I really want to highlight is our public open space. What we did was connect to 4th Street. We've created a one-way eastbound street, but that really allowed us to open that up to a true pedestrian open space in an active center, an active location for the residents, not just for the residents, but for the public at large. While we're proposing this street, it will remain a private street on paper only, and by that I mean the property owner will pay to maintain it, but there will be an easement for complete public use. So it will be maintained privately, but it will be open to the public. And this is looking from Rosemary east to Railroad, and this is looking from Railroad west to Rosemary. So as you can see, we've really tried to incorporate a lot of pedestrian activity in this particular location. And again, this is from Rosemary looking west to Railroad. With that, part of my presentation was extremely brief, but we have our architect, Terrence, here to run through some of the plans with you, and of course, we're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Terrence Conley from BC Architects out of Coral Gables, Miami. We are the architects for this project. Let's go back here. When we started conceptualizing this project, we wanted to create a development that had a strong sense of place, and that meant having a residential community that had a distinct character and that offered an exceptional quality of life for the residents. Equally, we wanted to create a welcoming public realm. So starting with the site plan, you can see the building is divided into 2 wings, north and south. On this plan, Rosemary is down to the west and north is to the left. And so on this plan, we organized all the active uses, the units and the lobbies along those main corridors, 4th Street and Rosemary, while keeping the parking and the loading areas off of the secondary 3rd and Railroad, and they have their own internal alleys and integrated maneuvering. As Ellie mentioned, there is a significant amount of open space, over, I think, almost 8,000 square feet of public and semi-public open space, including Rosemary. Rosemary has walk-up gardens throughout the entire length with Pocket Park on Rosemary, but the majority of the open space is along that new 4th Street extension. This is a view of that 4th Street extension, the elevation view, where you can see how the open space spans from west to east, Rosemary to Railroad. It includes 3 distinct courtyard spaces, and this is also where you can access the public amenities, the building lobbies, and there's also a few residential units on the ground level that have direct access to that right-of-way. Again, there's that here's that view from Railroad and 4th looking down at that open space on 4th Street. You can see how the street trees and the open space landscape creates almost like a linear part that goes through the site. You can also see how the building at the podium bridges over 4th Street, creating this connection at the podium for the project, and also forming that 5th Street residential amenity overlooking the public areas. Going back to the plans, just to give you a view of the project going up. This is the 2nd floor. You can see how, in color, the active use is wrapping around all sides of the project on both sides, on both wings of the building. Only the interior lot lines are the garage walls. This is levels 3 and 4. You can see how the parking starts to bridge over the 4th Street extension, creating that bridge we saw in the rendering. And this is the 5th floor amenity deck, which we think is a very special part of the project, because this is where the building changes its footprint dramatically. It steps back on Rosemary and on 4th to provide over 30,000 square feet of private open space, including pool decks, there's a ball court, barbecue area, activity lawns, and even private terraces off the units on that floor. And as you go up levels 6 through 8, the building becomes 2 separate towers again for those 4 floors. Briefly talking about the architectural character and materials, we wanted to accentuate the massing of the building with a limited color palette, so we went with warm grays, steely blue colors, outlined with a very crisp white framing elements and balcony eyebrows. And also for the base, we wanted to add prominence and weight and contrast to the base, so we rendered that in a scored stucco with a deep charcoal gray color. And to further accent the building, there's dark gray middle elements in the building, in the balcony screens, the window frames, and also the balcony railings. We continued that palette throughout the project and every facade of the building. The garage area is also rendered in that palette. We've incorporated pilasters and recessed niches that echo the scale and the rhythm of the upper stories. There's also at the top level of the garage a vertical screening element that kind of ties the project together, and also is echoed in the bridge design, as you can see here. This is the corner, the main corner of 3rd and Rosemary Avenue, and we've highlighted this corner by having a contrasting volume for that corner element, and this is where that liftwork unit, 2-story loft area, will be located at the base of this volume. You can also see how the building steps back to create those private terraces and allow for a stronger pedestrian realm on Rosemary. This is a section at Rosemary, a street section, and you can also highlighting that very big step back in the project. As you can see, at its highest point, the tower is 8 stories, but because of this 50-foot setback, those on Rosemary only perceive a 4-story facade. And you can also see how the 2nd floor overhangs the 1st floor just by a few feet, and that also creates that lower scale and encapsulates that pedestrian rail. This is a view of that pocket park I mentioned earlier. This is the smaller of the open spaces. It's on Rosemary. It's more intimate, but it provides a way for an opportunity for pedestrians to take a rest before continuing on Rosemary, or it's a great place for informal gatherings. This is that view that we saw earlier, looking from the existing termination of 4th Street towards the project. I believe this is the defining image for the project, because it brings together the massing, the landscaping, the building elements, the sweeping lines, all to draw the eye and be a welcoming element for the project. And finally, this is a view from 4th Street looking towards the building. This is a great view because it brings together all the key elements of the project: the open space, the signature bridge, the dynamic architecture expression, all coming together to further that goal we had from the beginning, to create a sense of place and to create a welcoming pedestrian realm. And I think with this project, we've found that solution for that goal. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from staff.
Thank you. And thank you to the applicant for the presentation. I'm going to try to not repeat information that you already heard and just highlight certain things about the project that relate to the standards of the special review. So one of the things that I want to point out is that the site being greater than 50,000 square feet is subject to a special review and approval from DAC. And it has to meet these standards that we'll go over very briefly, highlighting a couple of things in them. A couple of things in each of them. I also want to point out that there are no variances that are being requested, which is great. That means that the applicant actually, comply with all the regulations in the downtown master plan. I do want to highlight the district where this property sits, which is the Northwest District. As you know, as you may be aware of, the intent of the district is really to revitalize the historic mixed-use corridor of Rosemary Avenue. And as you saw, this project sits right on Rosemary Avenue, and also encourage the development to be low to medium scale. And again, as the architect pointed out, there are certain massings and volumes that really apply to these different types of regulations. And the intention of all of this is really to respect the historic character of the district. The map that I'm showing you here is really just to point out the different districts around this area. So if you look at the orange arrows, you will see that it's pointing out the lower scale development that is happening around the city. But if you look at the purple arrows, it's pointing out the urban core, which tend to be higher in scale. So this particular project sits right at the edge of the Northwest District. And you can actually see it in their massing and the volumes of the buildings. You see it again, as the architect explained, how the setbacks are being met and how the low scale is actually more towards Rosemary Avenue compared to, the tower that sits farther to the east. And another thing just to point out that they already did too is just the extension of 4th Street. This is, again, we have an existing street network in the city. Extending a street is also providing more connectivity in the city. And the public art, which they mentioned too, and I will also mention later on, will be placed on the bridge facades, on the west and east facades, and is highlighted here in pink. So this all relates to the standard relationship building of the site, to the site and surroundings. In terms of circulation, I'm not really going to go over anything here, just to point out that we are recommending for the applicant to coordinate with the city because the city has plans on redesigning Rosemary Avenue. So we want to make sure that the design is integrated in Rosemary. Building design, the architect Greg made a great presentation about the different facade articulation and architectural treatment. I just want to point out that in the bridge, we do have where the public art will be placed. We have parking use behind it. That is considered a non-active use. So our recommendation that we're giving is to add a condition for the applicant to come to present to you the finalized artwork, so that way you can ensure that the parking is being screened adequately and it works with the overall building design. In terms of the standard of public realm, again, they provided all the active use that they will have in the ground floor, the terraces that they have in the upper levels, and obviously mentioning the public open spaces that they have on 4th Street. Again, this all compared to what we have right now, a vacant lot, right? This is all going to be improved. The condition that we have is just for city staff to review the final design of these open spaces, so that way we know more the details about how these spaces are going to look like. And one way to really show you that is really just highlighting other projects that we have in the city, that they actually have the design, the public open spaces in the city, and they are complying with the requirements, but are actually providing a really good spaces for everyone to enjoy. So our recommendation is to approve the special reviews based on the findings that the petition meets the standards as indicated by the section 94-54B2. The recommendation is made subject to the following conditions. One condition is, again, for the applicant to come back to present to you the finalized public art. The second condition is for the final design of the public open spaces to be brought back to the city for review and approval. And the third is for the applicant to coordinate with the city for the design on Rosemary Avenue. Of course, this is if the streetscape is not going in construction, if actually overlaps with it. And that's it. I don't know if you have any questions for me or the applicant.
I do have some questions, but I'm not sure. Should we hear from the public first if there's anyone wishing to speak on this case? Okay. Seeing none, I think we'll go to the board with any comments and questions. Ms. Hoey?
May I just, could you please just clarify the extension of 4th Street? I didn't, could you show like before and after, how the extension works?
Yeah, I don't know if the applicant would like to answer that question. I'm gonna just show you the photo of right now, the existing conditions.
So along Rosemary, if you look to the west of Rosemary, you'll see 4th Street already exists. Currently, if you are heading east on 4th, you would dead end into what is now a vacant parcel. Once assuming we get approved and go through and develop the property, once that comes to fruition, you will be able to go east. You will not be able to go west from Railroad with your vehicle. You will not be able to go west from Railroad to Rosemary, but you will be able to go from west to east. It's a one-way heading from Rosemary to Railroad.
Okay.
So you almost see in the pink, you can almost see like a little break. It's just south of that is where that road would go. Does that make sense?
I had a question on that same topic, just to stay on it. I guess the question is why? Is there a requirement to have a road by the city, or is that a program requirement for your internal?
That's a
program?
loaded question. Okay, so the city does have a desire, I believe it's on their thoroughfare map. There is a desire to have that connection. It is not required, it is a desire. However, in this particular instance, there was a little bit of a other issue. So the vacant parcel that is not part of this development, the powers that be that predated both myself and the current owner entered into an easement agreement many moons ago for some vehicular and pedestrian access along there. That's the long and short of that.
Continuing on that, can I ask a question? Same question on the 4th Street extension. You have a lot of activity that's going to happen between the north and east, north and south towers. There's, the lobbies are sort of fronting on there, and there's a lot of, like, you have the bike and you have the mobility all in that area, with morning traffic coming in to try and get to the garage and to head downtown. Was there any thought of possibly putting in traffic calming measures, maybe central under the bridge, maybe a speed table of something to kind of control the traffic as it's coming in?
So we actually thought about that and took much care because we really want, and that's another reason we made it a one-way. We really wanted it to be more pedestrian-oriented than vehicular. So if you notice our garage ingress egress points, none of them are on the new design 4th Street for that purpose. And you hit the nail on the head. We didn't want the morning traffic coming in and out or the evening traffic coming in and out. So our northern garage entrance is on Railroad, where our southern garage entrance is on 3rd. So we have completely removed any possibility of that.
For yourselves, I'm just wondering the unintended consequences of people coming out from outside the project to cut through. And that, like, my concern more is if you're creating this pedestrian area, maybe it makes sense to put some traffic calming to kind of control or quell them, because some people like to not travel down traffic calm streets, and that might deflect some pass-through traffic that you might not want in the morning, because they'll come from every direction to get where they got to go.
Right.
And
That's
I'm
a
one
good
of them.
point, that you're one of them. That's a good point. We will work, as we go through that open space, which we do as a condition, and by the way, we agree to all 3 conditions that are being placed on us. While we go through the open space design with staff, we'll also work with Valerio and have that discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
I do agree with my colleague regarding the 4th Street access to Railroad. I mean, being working in transportation, I do see possible conflicts with pedestrian and vehicles. So some type of traffic calming measures is very necessary to really mitigate potential even fatality on that access point.
If I may, I failed to mention, we worked very closely with staff on this as well. As you know, the more narrow the street, the pavement is, the thought is it slows traffic. So we actually proposed the most narrow. I can't remember if it was 10 feet wide or 11, but it's the most narrow the city would approve for a one-way street. But again, I agree with you. We'll work with staff during that open space development.
Do we possibly know already what will be the speed limit on that roadway? Do we know?
I have that's above my pay grade.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, just because speed is a factor, because whenever you go over 25 miles an hour, it's disaster for
I was going
pedestrians.
to say, I think 25 would, in my opinion, should be the max that road should handle.
Okay.
Maybe we can hear from staff on this too, just in terms of like, I mean, I'm just looking at this and what I hear is that parcel that you don't have is the reason or one of the main reasons for that street. I mean, can you get off Railroad and just go into that parcel and perhaps have the rest of that street dedicated to pedestrian open space with no vehicles? One-way streets are just kind of weird, I think, a little bit, and you're going to have people going down the wrong way, and I don't know how often you're going to have cars, but the perception is, or at least my gut is that probably not very much, and if you're not going to have very many cars going through there, why wouldn't you dedicate that to other uses such as pedestrian space, green space, etc.?
So from your lips, I wish we can do that. So we have worked, I don't want to say we've worked very closely and leave it at that, but we've done that and pleaded with our abutting property owner, and while they do not have any plans, and I think that might be the issue, they don't have any plans submitted to the city as of yet, at least not to my knowledge. So they were trying to keep that option open, and they have not released us from that easement. So this is, again, we could have done a huge street. We chose not to because we wanted to create that pedestrian environment. But we don't have a choice. We don't hold all the cards to that.
I guess maybe that's where staff and from a city transportation engineering standpoint.
Yeah, the easement that, as the applicant mentioned, is one of the drivers for having this street. We always encourage to have more connectivity, and this is a future street designated in our maps, in our plans. This used to be a right-of-way before, but the development back many years ago, actually, the city abandoned it for that development, and that didn't happen, so we're here back again, putting it back in. But we can definitely work with the city's traffic engineer and any other departments to see what would be the best outcome on whether or not it should be a one-way or it should be a street.
Oh, great, thank you. Yeah, I think to the extent of if you can meet your legal obligations to that parcel, but perhaps have flexibility on that streetscape design, that would be great, but I think you can work out the details. I appreciate that, thank you. Any other further comments or questions? James?
I just
Motion
have
to
a
appro-
comment on the bridge. I really love the idea, kind of connecting the two buildings. I really love that. And then creating, pedestrian space and the public realm. Yeah, so I really like that. And with the transit village going up, there will be more people walking from the train station into downtown. So I think having more public realm pockets like that is really helpful. Thank you.
And they have actually been talking to the artist, the Art in Public Spaces coordinator here in the city, and they already have an artist that will be providing this artwork, and we can show you a preview of it if you would like.
Please.
Where's my presentation? Sorry.
Yeah, you're welcome. Here, right?
So this, sorry, we're still working out all the details, but we have gone preliminarily for review by the board, and we showed them a few designs, and this is the one they really liked. The idea behind this is trying to pay homage to the neighborhood. As it's a music, we wanted to do the trumpets. They go from small to larger. The details, again, are still being finalized, but Alexandre is a pretty famous sculptor, not just in the city, or the state, but in the country. He's actually going to England this month for an installation there as well. So he's pretty well known. He was known by the city as well, so they were pretty happy when we gave them the name. So we're working very closely. I think we go May 8th. I think we go to the art board on May 8th, and then we'll come back to you all with the final.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve granting the special review. I remove that the Downtown Action Committee approve the special review for DAC case number 22-19 as listed in the staff report dated April 5th, 2023 with the following conditions. 1, as required by the city's Art Life West Palm Beach ordinance, the applicant has identified the location of the public art within the proposed development. A placeholder of the public art, which will be located on the west and east facades of the bridge connecting the two buildings, is shown on the site plan and elevation plans. Once the artwork is finalized, the applicant will present it to DAC before seeking City Commission approval to ensure non-active uses are screened adequately and that the facade articulation is suitable with the artwork. 2, the final design of the public open space shall be brought back to the DAC for final approval to ensure that the proposed hardscape, landscape, and urban furniture enhance the quality of the public realm and contribute to its viability and attractiveness of the spaces. 3, as the city led by the Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, plans to reconstruct the streetscape of Rosemary Avenue from Banyan Boulevard to 11th Street. The developer shall coordinate with the city on the redesign of Rosemary Avenue and adjust the proposed streetscape design if the city's design phase is completed before the project's proposed streetscape starts construction. The motion is based on a determination that the testimony presented at this hearing along with the application submitted constitute a preponderance of competent substantial evidence. The board hereby makes findings of fact that the special review requested satisfies all the criteria of the City of West Palm Beach zoning and land development regulations, Article 2, Section 94-54B2.
Thank you. And before I call for a second, I just wanted to squeeze in one more comment relative to the landscaping on the rooftop. I don't know if your landscape architect is here, but if there can just be some special attention paid. It's a really, really hot condition, and the cross section I saw in one of those graphics looked a little small. If you can look around the city, there's been, I don't know how many rooftop parking garage failures with the landscaping at the edges, and it becomes weeds and weird trees that you see. So just a comment, if you could focus on that and have the right volume of soil and structural design for that weight up there, I'd appreciate it. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Case passes unanimously. Congratulations. You're welcome. Okay, moving on to new cases. TDR case number 23-05, a request by Philip Brownstein on behalf of WPB Fern Holdings LLC for the DAC approval of the transfer of approximately 18,148 square feet of TDRs from 311 North Sapodilla Avenue to 464 Fern Street, 418 Fern Street, and west portion of 401 South Dixie Highway pursuant to the City of West Palm Beach Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 4, Section 94-132. Location. The subject properties is located within Commission District Number 3, Commissioner Christy Fox. Case Manager Claudia. Hello, good morning again.
Hi again. Before I hand it over to the applicant, I just want to let you know that the staff reports that was provided to you have both of these cases into one staff report. This is because the transfer of development rights are going to the same receiving site. The other thing that I want to acknowledge is that on the agenda, the amounts of these TDRs was incorrect, and the ones that we will be presenting to you today are the correct ones. So I can hand it over to the applicant now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Lauren Thomas with Touchstone Web Realty. I'm here on behalf of Phil Bronstein with WPB Fern Holdings LLC. So as I mentioned, we're going to go over 23-05 and 06 at the same time. So here's the receiving site at 464 Fern Street, 418 Fern Street in the west portion of 401 South Dixie. And then in case number 23-05, it is actually going to be 18,130 as opposed to the DAC agenda that says 18,148. Case number 23-06 is going to be 14,073 TDRs. All right, our first sending site from case number 23-05 is going to be 311 North Sapodilla, which is CRA owned. They've just gone through renovations there. It was approved by the City Commission April 3rd, resolution number 22-552, and then approved also by the Historic Preservation Board on February 28th. The second sending site, TR case number 23-06, is 819 8th Street, otherwise known as Zion Church. This is going to be, they've got 18,460 square feet. They only want to sell 14,073 square feet of TDRs. They also went through renovations, windows, paving, all that. They've worked with the city on renovations for that as well. And then you can see the locations of both sites and then where it's going to as the receiving site. And that's for a total of 32,203 square feet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really, the applicant covered everything, so I'm just going to show the slides that we say we recommend for approval.
Sounds good.
Again, we recommend approval based on the findings for the transfer of development rights for case number 230-05, a transfer of 18,130 square feet from 311 North Sapodilla Avenue to the receiving sites of 464 Fern Street, 418 Fern Street, and west portion of 401 South Dixie Highway. Meets all the standards as prescribed by Article 4 Downtown Master Plan Urban Regulations, Section 94-132, Transfer of Development Rights Program of the Zoning and Land Development Regulations.
Do we have any comments from the public on this case? No, hearing none, I'll open it to the board.
Motion to approve granting the transfer of development rights. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the transfer of development rights, DAC TDR case number 23-05, as listed in the staff report dated April 5th, 2023, as follows. A, the transfer of 18,130 square feet from 311 North Sapodilla Avenue to the receiving sites of 464 Fern Street, 418 Fern Street, and the west portion of 401 South Dixie Highway pursuant to the requirements of Section 94-132.
Thank you. Now hear a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and the case is passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion for granting the transfer development rights. I move the Downtown Action Committee approve the transfer development rights, DAC TDR case number 23-06, as listed in the staff report dated April 5th, 2023, as follows. A, the transfer of 14,073 square feet from 819 8th Street to the receiving sites of 464 Fern Street, 418 Fern Street, and the west portion of 401 South Dixie Highway pursuant to the requirements of Section 94-132.
Thank you. Now hear a second.
Second.
Here in a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Case passes unanimously. Okay, now we're going to go to TDR case number 23-06.
That was the one that
Oh, that
we
was it?
also,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, PB case number 1933. A request by John Schmidt on behalf of Rosarian Academy Incorporated for the rezoning of properties owned and acquired by Rosarian Academy from Lofton District 5 LD-5 and Lofton District Residential LD-R to Community Service Plan Development CSPD. The rezoning effectively expands the boundary of the school CSPD and incorporates parcels recently acquired by a right-of-way and alley abandonment into the overall school campus. Location: the subject properties are located within Commission District Number 3. Commissioner Christy Fox.
Good morning. Thank you for your consideration today. Just a few short slides for you today for regard to the rezoning. I do have some site plan elements and stuff for you to show in there as well. This is the current area, overall campus. We were here a few years ago and put in the new play field and courts within the property. So the red line's kind of what's being operated as the school right now. It doesn't include the east side of Flagler Drive, although there are parking spaces over on that side. The existing condition, we have split zoning on the property. We've been able to purchase some surrounding properties. I'll show you in a further slides. We've got LD5 to the north and south, LDR on the alleyway, and then the east side of Flagler is the current zoning configuration, and the main campus being the CSPD, Community Service Plan Development. We've purchased the surrounding properties, which I'll show you, but this was bring us all into one consistent zoning setback, overall development pattern for the campus. Rosarian Academy is requesting the rezoning of properties owned and acquired by the Rosarian Academy from the Lofton District 5 and the Lofton District R residential to the CSPD. The rezoning effectively expands the boundary, incorporates the parcel acquired by Rosarian, which includes some right-of-ways, and I'll map these out for you. So the bottom green ones were offices that they have acquired over the last few years. The nuns, which is the upper one, are leaving the property. There's not many left there residing there, and they're dedicated the land to the school. We've also, in January, we were in front of you for buying eucalyptus and the alleyway. So those were abandoned and brought into the campus. So that's going to square us up nicely to about a 6.5 acre overall plan development. No new increase in student count. Phase 1, we're going to relocate the lower school. And phase 2, we're going to reconfigure the traffic and stacking. So we're going to be doubling the number of lanes, doubling the stacking that's happening out there, and this will help reconfigure the site. So this is our overall master plan. Phase 1 will be relocating the current toddler house to the main building. That's going to help not transporting them along the campus, all the STEM and all the learning center is over there. So we're going to bring them into the heart of the campus. This will allow us to reconfigure the parking and drop-off. So the red and green areas are for the middle school drop-off. That's from 7:30 to 8:05. That's doubling the lanes that are out there. If anybody's been past here, it tends to back up on Flagler in the morning and pickup, so this is really going to help alleviate that. The early childhood then comes after that at 8:05 to 9, and then the elementary drop-off has been relocated just off 7th Street, and double laning and extending that over there. So this is really helping with reconfiguring the site. We eventually then will build the new 150 by 28 athletic field where the nuns currently reside. So that'll help with some of their competition with other schools and new on-site parking. In closing, we're not expanding the use. The school is a permitted use in all the DMP districts in the downtown. The rezoning eliminates some of the split zoning and setbacks and things that we would have to deal with. It promotes a uniform development pattern. It meets all the goals, policies, and objectives of the comp plan of the EMP. We have staff's full support, and we are in agreement with a single condition regarding reversion to the original zoning should the school get relocated or move. We would respectfully request your recommendation for approval. We have to go to planning and zoning as well as city commission because of the plan development, and they really look at the site plan approval. Thank you for your service and time, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chris Kimmerly, Urban Design Planner. I won't cover everything that John just went over. Again, that covers basically the change in the boundaries there with the split zoning as well as their site plan. So again, this is a request to rezone recent properties from the Lofton District 5, Lofton District R into the CSPD. You will note in your staff report that there has been a text amendment that is brought forward to Planning Board and City Commission. City Commission has heard the first hearing of that, and that was to allow the direct rezoning of downtown properties into the CSPD. We currently allow CSPDs and PDs within the downtown as a kind of grandfathered in condition. But we didn't allow the underlying CS community service zoning wasn't permitted. So Rosarian kind of fell in this weird non-conforming conflicting condition, and that text amendment was to clean that up. So that is why we're here today to present the rezoning with that. And just to give a little more context, so John Schmidt on behalf of Rosarian Academy had submitted 3 separate applications. Again, that first one there is the text amendment to allow the rezoning. The second would be the rezoning, and the third is the major plan development amendment to the site plan. These are scheduled again to go forward to both Planning Board and City Commission for final approval as well. To reiterate, the request isn't the expansion of the use, it is only the change in the physical boundary of the CSPD. The underlying zoning, in a sense, will still be a DMP subdistrict. This is kind of held within our condition that I'll show, as well as the comp plan states that if a plan development is abandoned, that it would revert to the surrounding DMP subdistricts and regulations. Schools are permitted by right within all DMP subdistricts. Some residential subdistricts have additional conditions. These conditions are either met by Rosarian Academy, they're exempt from it, or grandfathered in because the school exists as it is today, as it was built. There will be no increase in FAR with this rezoning. There's actually technically a loss of FAR as the Lofton District 5 permits a 2.75 to 3.5 FAR. The CSPD only allows the 1.0. Additionally, it should be noted that CSPD has a little bit stricter setback requirements than that of the Lofton District 5 and Lofton District Residential. And even after the proposed rezoning and proposed build out, the FAR of the school is at 0.47. Again, the rezoning does eliminate the split zone condition between the properties. This is been difficult to regulate with setbacks and so forth between the various parcels there. And this allows it to be unified under the single ordinance that regulates the Rosarian CSPD. And again, the applicant's design with their master plan and meets the intent, goals, and purposes and objectives of the DMP and the comp plan. The plan has been reviewed by PPRC, and again, it is subject to Planning Board and City Commission approval. Staff has analyzed the rezoning based on the standards of Section 9432 and found that it meets all 8 of them. Staff is making a recommendation of approval with conditions on Planning Board case number 1933. The condition states that should the Rosarian Academy be abandoned or any portions of the property sold and or change in use, i.e. the school is eliminated or removed from this property, then the subject properties of the rezoning will be reverted back to the underlying DMP sub-districts of Lofton District 5 and Lofton District Residential. And again, this condition is consistent with our comp plan, which states that if a plan development expires or is abandoned, that the properties included within the plan development shall be deemed to have the FAR building heights and zoning of the district that they lie in. Again, this is tentative to your approval, and the item is scheduled for public hearing by both the Planning Board and City Commission for the rezoning as well. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
We do have a comment card from the public, so I think maybe if we can get that, or if you got a comment
I
first.
want him to work really fast,
Go
right?
ahead.
Specific. There's no motion page on this item, so I know we have to read in those conditions of approval, and I don't see anything unless you have it on your presentation. We're going to go through the public portion of this. I just wanted to let you know that.
I'll have to see if I can write up one real quick for you off that.
Thanks.
Okay, so if Michael Mueller is the one comment card I have here. If you could step up to the mic and state your name and address. Thank you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Michael Mueller. My wife Patty and I reside at 915 North Flagler. It's Yacht Club Towers. It's a small condominium complex, 4 stories, 45 units. I'm here today because I can't be here next week, and I understand that there'll be further proceedings on this next week. To those of us neighbors to the north of this property, the most crucial things said by Mr. Schmidt here today were the nuns are leaving and if the school moves. So it appears to us that the plan here is a preliminary one, and the ultimate plan is to put a large development there. Our condominium building has gotten to be pretty unique in West Palm because of its size. And to put up another very high-rise development, as we've seen so many, the effect on our place will be very dramatic. You can envision a large, very high-level development just immediately to the south of us. Okay. Many of us are retirees. Many of us bought these condominiums because of this unique nature. Many of us can't afford to move to these huge high-rise developments that cost an extraordinary amount of money. We're stuck at our place, and our place will change very dramatically because of what we foresee. And while I understand that this action today and next week as well is preliminary to what will happen in the future. I thought it necessary to speak today so that we can all be thinking about this. And let me go off on a little tangent, if I may. In 1963, my first wife, Pamela, graduated from the Adrian Dominican Academy, a high school in Adrian, Michigan, where she was surrounded by these wonderful, beautiful nuns. 29 years later, after she provided us with 4 children, cancer carried her away. She's no longer with us. But my new wife and I live here now. Our 4 children and our 8 grandchildren by my first wife, Pamela, come and visit. And they foresee many such visits in the future. And what we fear is a complete change in the environment.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Okay. Do I hear a motion?
If the board may, if you could make the motion based off of our presentation here with the approval with the condition.
I think I can cobble it together for you.
Apologies.
And thank you for those comments. The public's comments are very much appreciated, and we understand your concern. I know Rosarian's been there for a long time, and I foresee them being there for a long time. Their campus is being reorganized to better serve their students, and I also am a neighbor, but I think things are going to get better with traffic and whatnot. So with that,
And Brian, may I just add also that just to, read the doc here, the public comment, but actually the rezoning actually reduced the FAR, so it's actually reduced the density of the land. So it's actually, less, if you were worried about the high rise, the new density is actually lower than the previous one, so.
Motion to approve granting formal site plan review. I move that the Downtown Action Committee approve the formal site plan review DAC TDR case number 22-12 as listed in the staff report dated April 5th.
I think you got the wrong item.
It's a planning board case.
Planning board case number 22-12 as listed in the staff report dated April 5th, 2023 as follows. Staff recommends approval with conditions for PB case number 1933 based on the findings that the proposed rezoning complies with all of the amendment standards found in section 94-32 of the zoning and land development regulations. Condition 1, should the Rosarian Academy CSPD be abandoned and or portions of the property sold and or a change in use is pursued, school is removed or relocated, then the subject properties of 810 North Olive Avenue, 808 North Olive Avenue, 804 North Olive Avenue, 800 North Olive Avenue, 7th Street, and 807 North Flagler Drive shall revert back to the underlying DMP subdistricts of Lofton District 5, LD5, and Lofton District Residential LDR. This condition is consistent with the policy 3.1.4D of the downtown master plan element of the city's comprehensive plan, which states if a planned development expires or is abandoned, the properties included with the planned development will be deemed to have the FAR, building heights, and zoning for the district in which the properties are located.
Here's a second.
This motion is based on the determination of the testimony presented at this hearing along with the application submitted indicates that the applicant has not presented, I'm sorry. That's it.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Case passes unanimously.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, next case, number 4, formal site plan review number 22-12. A request by the City of West Palm Beach and the City of West Palm Beach Community Redevelopment Agency, CRA, for a face of the city approval of streetscape improvements and landscape enhancements along Chase Street between Okeechobee Boulevard and South Flagler Drive, and Trinity Place between Chase Street and South Flagler Drive within the Downtown Master Plan DMP area. The DAC shall make a recommendation to City Commission pursuant to Section 94-31G. Location: the subject property is located within Commission District Number 3. Commissioner Christy Fox. Chris.
Good morning again, Chris Kimmerly, Urban Design Planner.
Morning.
This is for a face of the city approval for Chase Street and Trinity Place. Again, this section of Chase Street goes from South Flagler Drive down to Okeechobee, and then the portion of Trinity Place there is between Olive and South Flagler Drive. Just to provide some context, in July last year, Related had approached the city with a proposal to revitalize the streetscape within the southern portion of the DMP. Related had engaged with the professional services of DS Boca for landscaping and Kimley Horn for engineering, and they had submitted a formal site plan review to the Planning Division and to our PPRC board. These final plans have been reviewed and past PPRC, and Related has agreed to donate these plans to the city. So the idea being that the city will construct the roadway improvements to the face of the city on Chase and Trinity. The CRA will be funding a portion of this development, and Related will be maintaining the improved rights-of-way as well as a portion of the Trinity Park as well. This is, again, the aerial of the section of the street there. That's Chase from Okeechobee to South Flagler. And this is the design proposal that's presented. So the change is that all sidewalks along the whole length of Chase Street will now be at the downtown master plan's required 8-foot wide sidewalk. So on both sides of this section of Chase Street, we'll have an 8-foot sidewalk. The section in front of the One Flagler building, which is on the far left there, that section will actually be increased to 10 feet of sidewalk. The One Flagler approval had a significant landscape buffer in front of the building, and we thought it would better balance that site out to have a better split between the landscaping and the sidewalk. So that section has been increased to 10 feet. As you can see in the plans there, there's proposals for increased vegetation and landscaping. Shade trees will be continuous along these frontages, and new landscape strips and buffers will be included. Currently, it's just carve-outs for the palm trees, so we will have continuous ground cover and new shade trees in between as well, where permitted. Should be noted that these intersections there of Lakeview and Okeechobee are FDOT right-of-ways, so the shade trees on that corner can't really be accommodated through the FDOT's requirements, but at least along Chase Street we have that increased vegetation. The design will feature a curbless street design with pavers on both the sidewalks and the travel lanes. And the crossings at Lakeview and Okeechobee will be stamped asphalt per FDOT requirements. There will be some minor curbing to protect the landscaping where there is either a driveway access or exit, or that loop there in front of the Esperante building also on the left. The plan includes channelized landscape islands and pedestrian refuge where all the garage entrances are, just to provide, again, a little bit more buffer for pedestrians walking along the sidewalk. Bollards are to be installed at all crossings, and again, to buffer where there is any vehicular movement in and out of the buildings. Pedestrian crossings are now perpendicular to the streets, so we've shifted them. This is to shorten the crossing. New light poles will be proposed, and the current locations will be adjusted. If you travel this area now, you'll see some light poles that are kind of smack dab in the middle of the sidewalk. Those will kind of be pushed out of the way so we maintain that clear path. And then within Trinity Park, so I'll move to that. Here's another view of the existing conditions. So we see here we have continuous landscape buffer, wider sidewalks again. It's a little bit more lively and green, and then the new paver and stamped asphalt crossings there. And then this is for the section of Trinity Place. So within this, again, we see the increased vegetation and landscaping, new trees, shade trees along the edge there, shade trees along the Trinity Park, parallel parking spaces that are there today. You'll notice that Trinity Park actually receives an additional sidewalk, so we now have a sidewalk connecting Flagler to Chase, and there'll be additional landscaping in between. The Trinity Place here becomes a two-way to accommodate this proposed drop-off that will come in with a later amendment to the Phillips Point building. So this drop-off is now on the Trinity Place intersection there. And again, same improvements to the hardscaping and landscaping that we're seeing on the rest of Chase. Again, another render here. You'll note that the Trinity Church property, their frontage there, currently only has a sidewalk with no landscaping or shade trees at all. This design proposal at least provides a little bit more of a landscape buffer. We might not have the space necessary for the shade trees, but smaller shrubs and trees that at least will help mitigate the impacts of pedestrians walking along that edge. For reference, a lot of the design elements kind of carry over what you see in the square today. So the paver crosswalks, the curbless street design, the ample amount of vegetation along the building facades, the newer light poles, the bollards and drop-off and safety areas, and the bicycle racks as well. So these elements are essentially carried over into Chase and Trinity. Staff supports the redevelopment and redesign of Chase and Trinity Place corridor. The design is seen as a comprehensive enhancement of the public realm. We have new shade and canopy cover. That's a significant aesthetic increase. The wider sidewalks for pedestrians, flush street crossings, hardscape, and so forth. We feel that this improves safety and the feel and the circulation within this area of the southern DMP. And this allows for the street frontages to be activated with a lot of the existing planned developments and properties, Trinity Church, Flagler Plaza, as well as any thing coming online with future improvements, Esperante, Phillips Point, and One Flagler. Should be noted that there was a public outreach meeting in February. This was conducted at the Esperante. Mailers went out to all property owners within 500 feet of Chase and Trinity. We had 18 members of the public and nearby residents attend this meeting. Generally, they provided positive feedback and just asked a lot of clarification questions, particularly with FDOT crossings on Lakeview and Okeechobee. There were some questions with landscaping and the type of tree species used, which we would like to look into now that the city is in possession of these plans. So when we go forward to doing the construction and so forth, take a harder look at the landscaping is one thing we would like to do. And then as well as the mailers for DAC, this also went to all property owners within 500 feet of Chase and Trinity. Regarding the review by the Downtown Action Committee, we ask that you make a recommendation of approval prior to it going to City Commission for face of the city approval. Is there any questions?
Chris, really fast. One of the graphics showed Trinity Place having landscaping that looked like it was going west, west of Chase. That one there. Is the south side of Trinity Place getting updated on that side as well?
So the western side there on the left-hand side?
Yeah.
Yes. So currently, what exists there is just parallel on-street parking with limited shade trees. I believe it's just palm conditions there as well. So where we can and where the space provides, there'll be additional ground cover and shade trees. And then there'll be formalized bulb outs. It's kind of hard to see there, but there's little triangular bulb outs between the parking spaces, again, just to buffer that and provide additional landscaping.
Great. Thanks.
Just on this slide here, so you mentioned Trinity Place is going to two-way.
Just for the smaller portion there where the park is.
Okay, so if I'm coming south on Flagler, looking at this plan, I can't make a right turn into Trinity Place, so it's only two-way at the point of the drop-off.
Yeah, exactly, just to allow the drop-off maneuvering. So that way, it's a little bit easier that we don't have the route traffic all the way around Phillips Point. They can go directly into the garage there.
And with regards to Chase Street, does this reduce the width of the travel lanes to what is there today?
No, I believe the travel lanes stay the same. We are removing, within these plans, there are 6 parallel parking spaces between the 2 Phillips Point garages. Those are being eliminated, and that's to push the landscaping and the sidewalk out, but the travel lane should stay about the same.
So I think everybody knows this, that Chase Street is very much a cut-through road right now.
Right.
And the traffic particularly coming off Flagler, moves extremely quickly. Being a user of that as a pedestrian every day, it's a very dangerous area to cross. So, anything we can do to make those lanes as narrow as possible, I think is great. I think the treatments themselves are definitely going to help. But to that point, this aerial is a good one. At the bottom of the screen, you've got that large landscape island that exists. And I see it on the plans that this is the project extents, but I don't see anything in the design that tells me, you've got some line marking and some striping around that island right now, and there's some delineator posts out in the road, and that's obviously there to try to slow traffic. I get that. Is there any thought to widening that landscape island to try to just make it a bit more of a narrow entry into the street? Because as those cars come down South Flagler, they're staying at 45 miles an hour as they hit Chase Street. Anything we can do to really narrow up that entrance into the street, I think would be beneficial.
Yeah, so I can say with that little island there at the intersection of Flagler and Chase, we are actually shifting it, I believe it's about 10 or 12 feet toward Flagler.
Okay.
And that is to kind of what is now striped will be, so that will be pushed forward and that will be landscaped. There'll be some additional landscaping in that island as well.
Okay.
And then the sidewalk condition that wraps around that point of the park, that'll be continued, and we'll have a landscape buffer on that as well. So we wanted to give a continuous connection to the Flagler frontage there.
Yeah.
So that island may shift a little bit and have additional landscaping in it. But yeah, we can certainly, now that we're in possession of these plans and proceeding to the construction, we can look at if there's any more travel lane reductions or things like that. We feel also that the paver material, having that, the sound, the vibration from driving across pavers, it might slow traffic down a little bit more as well. But yeah, we can certainly look into more traffic calming measures.
Yeah, definitely. And I think in with regards to that particular island, I think looking at opportunities to extend it, what would be to the west, extend that curbing out to the west. I know vehicles need to come out of the towers that are next door and make that right turn, but anything we can do to just really sort of channelize that a bit, I think would be a benefit. So I just encourage you to continue to look at that.
Great. Thank you. Any other further comments? Any
I just have a
comments?
quick comment to, I applaud the project. You know, I would just happen to walk there late at night fairly recently, and it was pretty dark, and I felt it was like not very safe, but then it was very underutilized for that location, and with all these great projects coming up next, this is a great initiative to activate the space and make it a lot more usable.
Lighting is part of the scope. You mentioned some lights
Yeah,
moving
so
around.
there'll be additional lighting, relocation of existing poles. All the poles will be upgraded to the poles that are kind of found in the Rosemary Square today. So that unique umbrella-shaped pole, so that'll be along that frontage as well.
Great. Well, you're not going to get an argument out of me with streetscape, so I think, are there any comments from the public? Yep, we have one comment.
Good morning, Vice Chair, members of the board. Special shout out to you, Brian. Good to see you. I'm Gina Baker, project manager with the city CRA department. So obviously we are in support of this project. We are a substantial funder of the improvements. The redesign supports the goals of the CRA, specifically in that it enhances the public realm and the pedestrian experience that you just spoke about along that corridor. So with that, we do respectfully request your approval for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'll turn it to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve formal site plan review number 2212. DAC makes this recommendation to the City Commission pursuant to Section 94-31G.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Case passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chris, can I ask you one question real quick?
Yes.
On that streetscape, is there, I didn't see anything that was flashing lights or ways to stop cars driving for any of the crosswalks. I'm assuming there isn't any, is that correct?
There hasn't been any proposal for like the signalized crossings at this time.
I think it would, in that area, Lakeview, and Oak, you can't stop cars. So I was hoping you would tell me there weren't any. I agree, like we all want to be safe, but right there, you just couldn't stop the cars.
Yeah, I don't think there are any at this time either, and with our proposal, we didn't have additional ones.
Okay.
There is ongoing I believe it's a triple R project for Lakeview and Okeechobee by FDOT. So they are looking to do something on Lakeview and Okeechobee, whether it's restriping or a signalization project. I don't know the full scope and details of that quite yet, but this may be coinciding with the upgrades to the streetscape, so perhaps they might look into something with that right of way there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think on that note, just real quick, I noticed one area on the plan where it's got like a little pork chop island at that intersection, and that might be an opportunity to put a sculpture, some kind of physical object, because if you combine something vertical and physical at that intersection with a reduced lane, with the texture of paving, you're using all these mitigation measures that will stop traffic down. That's been proven with these different studies, so that'd be a great opportunity.
A really good suggestion is to take 2 lanes away from Flagler Drive, and that'll slow traffic down.
That will.
Veto. Okay, moving on. Code revision case. Code revision case number 23-02, a city-initiated request for a text amendment to the Zoning and Land Development Regulations, Article 4-Downtown Master Plan Urban Regulations, Section 94-106, General Uses with Special Requirements, and Article 9, Permitted Uses, Uses Permitted with Extra Requirements and Special Uses, Section 94-273, Extra Requirements for Special Uses or Permitted Uses to modify specific regulations regarding medical marijuana dispensaries. Claudia?
Hi, again,
Hi.
Claudia Baben, City Urban Designer, and I'm bringing to you this case that is city initiated. It's a request for a text amendment, as you mentioned, the articles and the sections of the zoning and land development regulations to modify specific regulations regarding the medical marijuana dispensaries. Brief background, some of you already know about this information. In 2014, the Florida's Compassionate Medical Cannabis Act became a law, and in 2018, the city identified medical marijuana dispensaries as permitted use in some of the districts in the city. Since then, 8 medical marijuana dispensaries have been established in the city. And last November, as you might be already aware of, I think this was part of my staff report last staff meeting, the Downtown Development Authority sent a letter to the mayor and city commission raising some concerns about these establishments coming into the city, especially the ones that are coming into Clematis Street. On February, the mayor and city commission held a workshop, and in this session, information was shared about the 8 establishments, and 4 of them being actually in the Clematis Waterfront District. And also, it was again brought up that under the state law, pharmacies and medical marijuana dispensaries should be treated the same. So if any regulations we were going to bring forward, we will have to consider that too. Based on their direction and also the additional research that we have done, we are recommending these 2 different things. One being that medical marijuana dispensaries will not be permitted in the Clematis Waterfront District. Again, this is just to prevent greater concentration of these dispensaries. The ones that are already there will be grandfathered in, and they will continue to be there. But also, this aligns with the Clematis Waterfront District intent, which is, as you know, it signifies a major community space in the city. It is part of the identity of the city of West Palm. And the regulations in that district really promote developers to bring local retailers to have a specific, diverse storefronts, providing this diverse use in the Clematis Street. Another proposal that we have is a separation distance between medical dispensaries. With the research that we have done, we saw that in other municipalities in Florida, that was a common practice about setting that separation distance. Also, other regulations that they have in other municipalities was similar to us. They were not allowed in residential districts, and they were also setting separation distances from schools or certain uses like that. We look at the actual distance that we would like to see in the downtown. We looked geographically and also, again, taking in consideration pharmacies and how that was going to impact them. So we came out to the conclusion that the quarter-mile separation distance was the one to move forward. This is just the specific changes in the regulations. These are for the Downtown Master Plan Urban Regulations, Article 4. What you see in red and underline is added text. What you see in red and strike through is the text that will be deleted. And again, for downtown, you see that we are not permitting that in the Clematis Waterfront District and adding the separation distance between dispensaries. And then this is for outside downtown in the city, just adding the separation distance between medical marijuana dispensaries. Staff recommends approval for the CRC case number 23-02 based upon the findings that the proposed amendment complies with all the text amendment standards found in section 94-32 of the zoning and land development regulations. This also will be presented to the planning board next week and eventually to the city commission. Any questions?
Yes, I do. Yes, may I have, so there's the quarter-mile distance is the same for downtown and outside of downtown? Mm-hmm. Was there a discussion on whether, within downtown it should be different, or, I mean, I applaud this change. I live on Clematis, so I really don't want, I've been not liking the marijuana shops, and I really do like this to go forward, but I just want to make sure that the treatment, the quarter mile, so the existing store get to stay, and then the new store will be at least a quarter mile, but outside downtown, it seemed like it could be further apart, because I mean, we see like in Fort Lauderdale, it's like 1 mile, right?
Yeah, and again, this is just based off geographically. As you can see in these maps, we look at the 1 mile and the half mile. Outside of downtown, they're also permitted in certain districts only, not residential. And as we saw, the greater concentration is really in downtown because that's where everyone wants to be, maybe. But we only have 4 established outside the city. Outside the downtown.
You know, the DDA and the mayor's office have talked at length about this matter. So did they, the quarter mile is like all your office and the mayors and the DDA like all agreed on the quarter mile? Or?
It was presented as separation distance, but not the specific distance. So that will be brought to them once we present it to the city commission.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I personally would like it to be even longer, farther away, but if they're okay, with it, then.
We have to consider again that once we put this regulation in place, it's also going to impact pharmacies too. So pharmacies cannot be established,
Right, but the existing pharmacy will get to stay, and then the new
in
one,
the Clematis,
I mean, they probably won't
district,
be too close, like more than that anyway. You know, with a lot of pharmacy going online and other things like that, they probably wouldn't want it closer anyhow.
Thank you for your comment.
I agree. If I were to support this, it would have to be further. I imagine all the pharmacies are grandfathered in, just like the existing cannabis places. I mean, they don't need to be walking distance in my view. So if we're going to take some restrictive measure, I would be in favor of a more significant restriction than that. Can you flip back to the slide that gave the text amendment in red line?
Yes.
Yeah, I will not support that, but one little comment, I don't know that I would have written this amendment this way with the exception in the paragraph 14 where it says except and it lists out the districts provided the following conditions are met. I think that could be clarified even if this were to go forward, because I think what you're trying to say is that provided the following conditions are met applies to what is before the exception, and I don't think it's that clear. Those are my comments.
Go ahead.
Claudia, so let's just say this passes, whatever changes occur to it. So these existing dispensaries are in place, they're vested, they're going to become legal non-conforming once this passes. So 2 years from now, dispensary 1 and 2 are just knocking it out of the park. They're successful. They want to expand. They can't they?
That's right.
So they're protected today the way they are. Are we in any contradiction to any other higher authority, state law or whatnot, that they might come back and say, we're here, we're established, we can't grow our business? Is that, I know what the ultimate answer is that they can't expand it as a non-conforming use, so they should move if they're that successful. I'm just wondering, have we opened up a Pandora's box beyond our regulations at the city level? And it's not a matter of being in favor or not being in favor, just more a matter of thinking down the line. And I see Rick coming up and shaking his head, so I think we have an answer.
Well, I'll answer it. I was just going to whisper, Rick Green, Development Services Director, I was going to whisper in Claudia's ear. She showed a slide that some cities just prohibit medical marijuana dispensaries outright.
Right.
So the 8 that we have now would be grandfathered in, but if there was room for expansion, they couldn't expand beyond their capabilities today.
Right.
I don't think there's any state law that would preempt and
Right.
usurp the city's regulations, because again, we have the discretion of saying, no, we don't want to allow them at all, so.
Right, and that's a good point, because I don't know, could those cities be challenged for not even allowing it? Because this gets into the larger federal First Amendment rights issues than it does just standard zoning
Yeah,
issues.
I think that the legislation provides that out to the cities, and some cities have chosen to go that route.
Thank you.
So you mentioned, and we know that medical marijuana dispensaries need to be treated the same as pharmacies. So is there a change that is required to any pharmacy regulations as a result of this change? This is only changing the separation distance for medical marijuana dispensaries. So are we creating a separation distance for pharmacies as well? Do we need
Yes.
to?
Mhm.
Okay, all right. I didn't see that here, but is it a separate amendment or is it part of this amendment?
It's part of this amendment.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So the similar provision that is written here applies the same as it would
To
to pharmacies.
pharmacies.
Okay, I understand.
So, just point of clarification, so that would mean that if we would have to make it, medical marijuana further apart, that mean that will apply to pharmacies, pharmacy, because usually when you have a CVS, the next block has a Walgreens, so that's kind of that distance would kind of keep that culture going. So that's why, from my understanding, that's why you are recommending the quarter mile. Is that part of it also?
That's a good question. The CVS and Walgreens their primary use is retail, and pharmacies are as an accessory use for it. So they will not meet this. These regulations will not impact those.
Okay, that's
Claudia? What if they start dispensing marijuana?
They will be allowed to do so. At CVS. Yeah.
I think they need a special permit to dispense marijuana. It's not just like they choose
Yeah.
to.
Right.
It's a
Right,
special
but-
license.
National pharmacies have a way of getting what they want, so ultimately, if they jump on the bandwagon, they might fall into this as well in terms of what's there is vested, and so we're drawing the line right now. As soon as this gets approved in whatever format, what's there is there. What wants to come can't be there and can't be within, we're saying a quarter mile, or whatever that final number looks like. It's just, there's certain uses that are there today that might become part of this discussion. And as of today, I don't know if Walgreens or CVS dispenses, but nothing says that they can't in the future. So they may fall into some of this. And I think I've dealt with this in other jurisdictions in terms of other jurisdictions treating pharmacies like dispensaries and putting everyone under a blanket separation to try and keep things apart. I thought that was a little heavy-handed because I agree. A Walgreens is more of a retail than it is a true apothecary pharmacy that we all know from back in the day. But because they dispense drugs today, doesn't mean they're not going to jump on the bandwagon tomorrow. So they'll be subject to this at some point eventually, I believe, when things get more and more legalized and sort of regulated. I don't have an answer because this seems like there's people who have larger issues with this than I do. So I'll defer to my colleagues.
All right, good comments. Any other further comments on this case? No? Any comments from the public? Although I don't see anyone out there, I'll ask anyway. No. Okay, case number 23-02. Do I hear a motion?
I mean, is it possible for me to make a motion to revise quarter mile to 1 mile?
I think you can suggest that motion, and then if you get a second and it gets a vote of approval, but I would ask staff if that's.
I will ask the lawyer.
Because I just want to reiterate that the existing shops get grandfathered in, so now we're not chasing them out. We're just,
You can make whatever motion you would like to.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman and all members, may I make a motion to revise, to approve code revision case number 23-02 with just a minor change in the text to 1 mile distance.
1 mile distance. In downtown too, or outside downtown?
I would say outside of downtown.
I'm really
Usually
torn
when
about
you're
this.
outside of downtown, people will drive more, so that distance, they're not gonna walk. So, I mean, outside of downtown could be greater than a mile. If you would consider keeping maybe within downtown a quarter mile, because it's more walk friendly, and outside downtown greater than a mile or greater.
We would rather be consistent with the separation distance.
So so
Okay,
if
so
you
1
want to be
mile.
consistent, just keep it a mile.
1 mile?
Yes.
I'll
Do I hear a
second it.
Or
Can I make
comment?
a suggestion for a small amendment to her motion, and I'll ask your permission for that, per your request for clarification, or sort of to clarify that point in terms of, because I read that as well, and it seems like accept is kind of gets buried, and other jurisdictions where they want to prohibit it isn't being sufficiently parsed out. So maybe staff can look to change the language of the the restricted zoning district, so that's a little, per my colleague's suggestion, so it's a little clearer, so we have that, clear as day that these are, it's prohibited from this point forward in these, versus kind of, it jumps over it, and I agree, it's a little, it could be clarified a little bit.
Okay.
And it's at the point where it says enclave planning area except Northwest District RC and forward, just in that section there. Can we make that amendment to your motion to include just clarifying that language? Great, thank you.
Yes, I agree.
Great. And do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Do I hear a second?
Can we have some discussion on the motion?
Discussion?
So if you change the limit to 1 mile, you're in effect saying pharmacies can now no longer be within 1 mile of each other as well. So I'm not inclined to support the motion, whilst I understand your intent, and I certainly, this is a very principled issue that cities, municipalities, communities are dealing with all throughout the state and have been grappling with it for a long time. I mean, this law's been in place since 2014. Here we are, it's 2023. So different cities have approached it very differently. It's a really difficult issue to deal with because we're dealing with a real unknown too. We know that medical marijuana may one day become recreational marijuana. There's a lot of assumptions about what may happen in the future. And I think a lot of fear, rightly or wrongly, who knows? But in effect, the recommendation you're making, there's 2 things. One, our purview here right now is what happens in the downtown. So I think we just need to keep that in mind. But it would appear to me that if we make this change, we then have to make the same change for pharmacies. And I fear that that's probably a little restrictive, putting on my hat of someone who may have to deal with this outside of the downtown, and thinking of those property owners. The likelihood of limiting pharmacies, within a mile of one another to me, is problematic. I think if staff and the commission have been through these work sessions, have considered all the different options, myself, I'm inclined to support what is in the current recommendation. Again, while I understand why, and I think that is well founded, the reality is we have, 4, 5 here in downtown right now, 4 in the Clematis Waterfront District. They're here. There's not much more we can do about that. I think just a little nervous about making it a more restrictive limitation.
Can I calm your nerves a little with CVS and Publix and Walgreens are unaffected and on every corner, and probably the primary locations that people get their medications, if not through the mail or telehealth options, they're unaffected. So the largest pharmacy dispensaries are untouched by this.
They are.
It would only be the mom and pop where no one really goes.
My opinion, the debate around how a pharmacy or a CVS can be considered retail or a pharmacy, sometimes municipalities take a very different line on that as well. So whilst the city has clearly stated that, you know, those larger brands typically operate under the retail umbrella, it's still, you know, I just feel like it's you know, creating something that's maybe a little more bit too restrictive. So I'm inclined not to support the motion whilst I understand your intent. So that's just my comments.
Just to point out that if we do pass a 1 mile separation distance, it will basically block all downtown.
Can you say that again? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, if we pass the 1 mile separation distance between medical dispensaries, it will block out all downtown area.
From any further, any new ones other than the 5 that are in the class?
So that's fine.
Okay, may I propose to change that to half a mile, because I don't want everybody downtown to come to Clematis to buy the weed.
Good point.
So half
Okay.
a mile,
So if I can summarize, there's a motion on the floor to change the distance to half a mile and to correct the language to get rid of the ambiguity. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it begrudgingly.
I hear a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have one,
Mr.
two.
Chair, can I
Yes, sir.
clarify, was that half a mile or a mile?
Half a mile.
Okay.
Okay, motion passes and case passes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let me just also note that Gregory Gabriel's here. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier, Gregory.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Next is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business?
So on the agenda there, you have from the last meeting, the Solana project was to bring forward the architectural treatment and fenestration to the board again for comment.
Yeah.
That case will be continued to the next DAC. We would like the applicant to present to us, planning staff first, make sure it's still code compliant before we present it to you all, as well as Roger Jansen not being here, being the one that made that comment. We wanted to make sure we get his eyes on that as well. However, I do have a brief update for you.
Okay.
That I want to bring to your attention. So this is regarding the 345 or 303 Banyan project, just behind City Hall here, the residential project. DAC had granted approval of this in May 2020. And as part of the DAC final order, there was the condition outlined there where the applicant shall ensure that the execution of the parking garage facade articulation reflects the details in the renderings as presented to DAC in terms of materials, variations, elements. So per the DAC final order, the applicant was to install this garage screening that you see there in those renders. It should be noted as well that at that DAC meeting, the applicant had said that their design, this design proposal, was put forward to meet the screening requirements with a design that uses conventional construction materials. But there was an element of the art in public places requirement in which they may integrate art within their design. They had mentioned that they would bring this back to both DAC and the art board for approval. This revisit was missed by both staff and the applicant. And the project went forward to City Commission with its art in public places. This is the screening that was presented to City Commission and approved. It's a wood batten design, continuous slats across the facade of the garage in a similar area that was presented to DAC. However, you can see there's the differences in punch outs and the motion in the materials. And as well, the art component there with the backlit orchids. And again, that is what has been installed today. So we just want to give you an update that this was missed by both staff and the applicant in previous things. And to kind of prevent this from happening again, as you can see, we've had in both the Celeste and the Solana projects, we had the condition that the art must come forward to DAC prior to going to City Commission. So we will enforce that as well. Art Life is now a part of Development Services and under the department. And as part of our PPRC review, we'll make sure that the art requirement, either the contribution of the monetary funds is provided at the time of, prior to coming to DAC, so at the time of PPRC approval, or that they indicate a location on site. That way it can be presented as part of their hearing. So I just wanted to give an update on that.
Thanks for the update.
It's a good thing Chairman Jansen wasn't here.
Okay, any new business?
I'll just make a comment regarding the Okeechobee project you guys mentioned earlier, that the construction date is 2024, and it's a $4.2 million project that's going to happen on Okeechobee Boulevard.
Oh, great. Yeah, we'll be looking for that. Thank you for that update. I had a request too, and it's hard to, I guess, imagine from out here, but up here, when I look at my fellow board members, it's like a hall of mirrors, you know, with this plexiglass stuff, and I think we're probably beyond the point it's needed, my personal opinion. And
Second.
Unanimous approval, maybe. Whatever process needs to go through with the city, if I could just make a formal request to ask for these to be removed, I'd appreciate it.
Rick, we understand that City Commission doesn't like each other, but we're a different crowd.
We'll pass that information on to City Commission. We were surprised one day when the glass, if you remember, there was one here.
Yeah.
And we just realized a couple of weeks ago that mysteriously disappeared. So we'll pass that on to administration.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if there's not anything else, I'll call us adjourned. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, may I just, sorry, one more. There's a new law just passed in Florida for affordable workforce housing, you know, that passed the House and the Senate and signed by the governor. So if the director and the department, if you have planned to have, you don't have to create training, but if you plan to send staff from training, I would be very interested to attend as well, or other members. If we greatly appreciate you giving us an opportunity to participate in any training that you see.
Yes, that's Senate Bill 102. We're intimately familiar with it. We've spent a lot of time with it. We had a 1-hour meeting with our law department just last week. It's very complex. Dodie and I and my staff are working on it now. So we're going to have rules and regulations in place. We had temporary workforce housing regulations in place now that people can utilize, and people have taken advantage of it. This new law will go into effect July 1st, so prior to that time, we want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row and we understand the implications, so we're working on that as we speak.
Rick, do you think that there's going to be surplus lands that the city is going to be, or it will be affected by this?
We do have, as the legislation calls for, we do have an inventory of property that the city does own. Generally speaking, I don't think they're really large parcels. They're a lot here and there. But our housing department does have an inventory of those that we do track. We've sold a lot of those properties over the last couple of years, so we'll have that. The legislation, again, will require an inventory, which I think we have not only the inventory, but we have it digitized on GIS as well, so we'll certainly have that available.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.